we had the main event of UFC Fight Night Vegas 14, and that's Paul Felder versus Rafael Dos Anjos. This was a great fight, man. This was such a good fight. And coming into it, I think everybody was kind of rooting for Paul Felder here. Nothing against RDA. I think we all love Rafael Dos Anjos, but it felt like the stars were aligning for a guy like Paul Felder. He told the story about his dad, dying from cancer in Movember. And he was talking to everybody, it felt like. He felt like he was the guy. And not only that, he steps in on 5 days' notice, cuts, I think, 25 pounds to get to 155, and talks about the night before. That Thursday night was one of the darkest nights of his life because he felt like he had never pushed himself to that point in a weight cut. Everything felt like it was lining up for Paul Felder to come in and win this fight and put himself back into contention at 155. And I got to tell you, Rafael Dos Anjos said, that's real cool and everything, and I'm glad that you got the opportunity to fight, Paul, but I'm back. I am back, and man, did he show it. Rafael Dos Anjos looked like the former champ. He looked like the 155 champion from years ago. In this fight, he was mixing it up. He was shooting takedowns. Rafael Dos Anjos shot 22 takedowns on Paul Felder. 22. Which goes to show you how good Paul Felder looked as well. So let's talk about this fight, man. From the first round, Paul Felder looked amazing. He looked like a guy that was fresh. He looked like a guy that was crisp. And this is something Mike Bisping said. He goes, listen, these fighters, they know how to fight. The sparring and the cardio and all the stuff you do in camp to get ready isn't teaching you how to fight. It's preparing you for the fight ahead. It's making sure you're crisp. It's making sure your weight's under control, your cardio's under control. But these guys know how to fight. So the fact that Paul Felder didn't have a camp, it's crazy to believe he was that sharp. And that's what Michael Bisping kept saying. He was like, man, this guy is so sharp. This might be the fastest I've seen him. But he was rejuvenated. He didn't have a camp to bog him down, to have to wade concept. He didn't have to wade through camp, and go through the sparring rounds and push himself and come into that fight a little beat up or beat down, because he didn't have the camp. So he was fresh, he was crisp, he was fast. I mean, he did. Paul Felder looked faster than I've seen him look in a long time, man. He looked rejuvenated. He said after the fight, I haven't been in an MMA gym in months. I think he said 4 months. So Paul, you could tell, was having trouble, finding that passion, and this fight seems like it brought it back. And like I said, in the first round, he looked good. He was putting shots together well. But on the flip side, Rafael Dos Anjos looked phenomenal. He was landing his straight backhand, his straight left hand on Paul Felder, just tagging him with it over and over. And Paul would return with shots, but not only was Rafael landing on the feet, then he was shooting for takedowns. And he was making Paul work on the fence. The things that we said in our last podcast that he was going to have to do, or he should do, to win the fight. And it's a smart strategy. You got a guy coming in on 5 days' notice, just got 25 pounds, hadn't been through a camp. Push his cardio, see if he can last. And again, a big tribute to Paul Felder. He lasted all 5 rounds. I thought it would be a 4th round submission. I thought Rafael would get him to the ground and submit him. I didn't know Paul had never been submitted. I did not know that. That's a big feather in the cap of Paul Felder. That's a huge thing, to never be submitted, to never be stopped like that. That's a big deal. But again, Rafael Dos Anjos, I thought he edged the first round. And then from there, it just seemed like he continued to take over using his grappling. But it wasn't just grappling. Yes, he was having success pushing Paul into the fence, finding stuff in the clinch, and then putting the hands together, dumping Paul on the ground, and holding him there. The top control from RDA was phenomenal. He was controlling Paul for sometimes half the round on the ground. And on the feet, RDA was doing good work too, man. He was, like I said, he landed the straight left, the counter left hook. One of them spliced Paul up, I think, late in the 3rd or 4th round, and you could tell Felder was like, damn it, because the blood started gushing down his face. I thought there might have been a doctor stoppage there, but I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they let Paul go out and finish that fight, because it meant something to him to be in there and push himself through that and find that passion, that love for fighting again. I think it would have been very unceremonious to stop that fight prematurely and not let him get that Warriors finish. And he was in there. He was in that fight the whole time. So, but yeah, RDA looked great, man. He was not only practicing the mixed martial arts, he was finding ways to flow between the grappling and the striking, but he was keeping himself out of danger for the most part. Paul landed some big shots from time to time. He landed some big time stuff, but he didn't land anything that put RDA on wobbly legs or put him in super danger. Combinations I liked from RDA, especially when he was going to the body in the clinch. And then he found ways to get Paul to the ground, and on the ground he was doing work as well. So RDA, a complete performance. I wouldn't say it's a full domination, but he did win, in my opinion, every round. The first round was close. The fourth round I thought was really close. But in those rounds, he still found a way to get Paul to the ground and do some work on top. So RDA with a big-time win. And this puts RDA right back into that top 5 conversation. It puts him right there at the top with some of the biggest guys in the division. And you're talking about a division that's so up in the air because we've heard Khabib say he's retired. Then we heard Dana say, I don't think he's retired. And then Ali Abdelaziz comes out and says, we think Khabib's going for 30-0. So it doesn't, and Dana's saying we're not stripping him either. So it doesn't look like Khabib is as retired as maybe he said on the night. So you still have Khabib as the 155 champion. You have Conor and Dustin. I mean, it's not signed on Conor's part yet, but probably going to be fighting on January 23rd. You have Tony Ferguson now calling for a fight with Michael Chandler. There's so much at the top of that division. If I'm RDA, I just let those fights play out. I let those fights happen, and then I see kind of where I stand. RDA's calling for a fight with Conor McGregor. I would love to see it. Conor said, yeah, let's do it. After I'm done with Dustin, I'm fine with that. So it looks like there's a lot of things now here for RDA, and that fight would make sense on some level, but I do think Conor is going to go, and if he beats Dustin, be propelled into that title picture before he fights RDA. But who knows? I truly don't know what's going to happen at 155. If Khabib is still there, I don't know if he automatically just grants Conor that rematch. I don't know if he does that. He might be looking at that Tony Ferguson fight. Who knows? But this was a step in the right direction for Rafael Dos Anjos. Like I said, I think he's top 5 in the division. And we need to give Paul Felder some credit here, man, because you're talking about a guy that hadn't stepped in an MMA gym in 4 months, had been training for a triathlon, comes in on 5 days' notice, loses 25 pounds, goes 5 rounds with RDA, who was on a full camp ready to go. And yes, he had been training for a grappler in Islam Makhachev. Rafael was going to be grappling heavy, and Paul is obviously more of a striker. For him to come in, and it wasn't necessarily for him so much about, that title picture as much as it was refining that love for the fight game. And of course he wanted to win, of course. Like, you don't go in there not wanting to win. And he put on a great performance, but the loss doesn't sting as bad when you can find that love for the game again. And I can say, in anything that in life that you do, when you get burnt out on it, you're tired of doing it, it takes something special to reignite that flame. And it looks like that happened for Paul Felder. So good on Paul, man. A good performance, but Rafael Dos Anjos was a different animal. Rafael Dos Anjos, welcome back to 155.